and Management of Non-Communicable Diseases. The chairperson for the session is Dr. Salome Benjamin. Dr. Benjamin is designated as Chief Medical Nutritionist, TN Medical College and Nair Hospital, Mumbai. Presently, she is the Vice President and founder member of Association of Diabetes Educator. She has published several papers and articles in books and journals of repute. She is a regular speaker and chair at national and international conferences and also a key opinion leader, nutrition and advisor on various committees and boards of nutraceuticals. We welcome you, ma'am. May I request Professor Pradeep Bhatnagar to present a token of our gratitude to Dr. Salome Benjamin. Thank you, sir. The speakers for the session are Professor Meenakshi Bakshi Mehen, Professor Sheel Sharma, Dr. S.K. Sharma, and Dr. Virendra Singh. May I request Professor Pradeep Bhatnagar to present a token of our gratitude to Professor Meenakshi Bakshi Mehen. Professor Sheel Sharma. Thank you, sir. May I now request the chairperson to take over the session.
Very good morning to all of you. It's my pleasure to be with you all here at this beautiful morning at Jaipur. And I'm happy. This is my first visit to Jaipur from Mumbai. And I'm glad to be there in the midst of this conference at this university and a topic of non-communicable disease. Indeed, it's a dual burden and at a greater risk our country is leading to be a capital of NCDs. And this institute on university is taking keen interest in giving the knowledge about NCDs, the burden about NCDs and the management. So the upcoming, the budding people, the professionals will take interest and focus their future career in curtailing these diseases. May I now invite the first speaker. I would like to introduce Dr. Meenakshi Mehen. She is a professor, Department of Foods and Nutrition, MS University, Baroda, Gujarat, India. She has a long teaching experience of 25 years. She has many national and international publications. She is technical expert for intensive training of WHO fellows on maternal and child health nutrition. She is an invited expert for national and international organizations like CARE, UNICEF, Foods and Nutrition Board, Sports Authority of Gujarat. She is also a member of many national and international bodies, standing expert peer committee for review of proposals as Public Health Research Initiative of Public Health Foundation of India. Her major interest is public health nutrition, and she is also training public health experts in intensive training. I invite her to talk on global burden of NCDs. Thank you.
Non-communicable disease control. But my topic that is today, my job is to actually sensitize you about what is the burden of non-communicable diseases globally and in India. And then I think we have sessions later on to really discuss and decide what actually needs to be done in order to control this non-communicable disease burden. So I'll start with that. Now, non-communicable diseases are referred to as chronic illnesses, or also called as chronic degenerative diseases, which are generally characterized by uncertain etiology. We really don't know the causes sometimes. There are multiple and often shared risk factors, long latency period, that means for a long time you don't know that this is happening in your body and you may be actually succumbing to these issues. Prolonged course of illness, once you have it, it's there with you for your lifetime. It's non-contagious in origin. It causes functional impairment, and as I said, they are actually incurable. And if we look at there are actually lots and lots of diseases which come under the domain of non-communicable diseases, but the 4 sets of diseases are the most common non-communicable diseases that affect populations, and they are basically cardiovascular diseases, cerebrovascular diseases like heart diseases and stroke, diabetes, cancers, chronic lung diseases like asthma, COPD, etc., and other NCDs. And the root cause of all these is physical inactivity, smoking, and most important, which concerns us, is unhealthy diets. Now let's look at how the scenario of proportion of deaths is changing globally. We traditionally in public health, community nutrition, we have been talking about nutritional deficiencies, as Dr. Katoch also had pointed out, that we have been grappling with the problem of micronutrient deficiencies, undernutrition, and other things. And we also have good national programs to take care of them. So globally also and in India also, I will show later, the communicable diseases, because of very good immunization programs, maternal, perinatal and nutritional conditions are actually contributing to 34% of deaths. Okay, and rest are accidental injuries, and a large proportion of, we don't have the pointer, a large proportion of this is NCDs, that is non-communicable diseases. So if you look at this pie, the largest pie is for non-communicable diseases, which is 52% globally. Okay, and if we again look at this 52% globally and see what are the various contributors to non-communicable diseases, as I had already pointed out, the major contributor is cardiovascular disease. 37% of the non-communicable diseases that are occurring, deaths that are occurring, are due to cardiovascular diseases and its complications, followed by malignant neoplasms or cancers. Then you have respiratory diseases, that is COPD or asthma, etc., diabetes, 4%. And if we look at diabetes, it may look small, but you see the complications of diabetes are towards cardiovascular diseases, and so death occurs because of cardiovascular diseases. So diabetes as such may look 4%, but then it's a basic problem that ultimately lands up with cardiovascular diseases. So if you look at this pie, then we can understand that nutritional deficiencies, communicable diseases are actually coming down because of, as Dr. Katoch also has said, very good government programs, but we still have to wake up to the problem of non-communicable diseases. Okay, globally also. Now, as nutritionists, we also must understand that there is a link between undernutrition and overnutrition and non-communicable diseases. So, as Barker's hypothesis of fetal programming suggests, that if there is undernutrition during the fetal stage, then the metabolic programming of that child to handle insulin, to handle triglycerides is actually altered. So much so that once the child grows up, gets better nourished, the child leads to childhood obesity occurs. Similarly, undernutrition, if the child does not catch up growth and continues to be undernourished, he becomes a stunted child, and the stunted child is now, if you look at from a nutritional standpoint of view, is the biggest burden that we are facing. Stunting is the biggest burden that India is facing. We have the highest number of stunted children in the world. Okay, and that also leads to physical effects, of course, physical development, cognitive impairments, scholastic performance, low productivity, causes social deprivation, and all these relate to excessive CVD risk factors, and in the absence of poverty, in the absence of low income, there is a lack of access to healthcare services, inability to cope with these kind of problems, perpetuation of risk-prone behaviors like tobacco usage, etc., and less informed choices. All these again lead to high chronic disease morbidity and mortality in India, in the world also. Now, this is a little sad, transparency that I am telling you. This is the obituary of global deaths that we are talking about. And if we look at 2005, there were 9.8 million deaths that occurred due to non-communicable diseases. Out of that, 3.8 million deaths were in productive age groups. We say that we are having the problem of non-communicable diseases which occur prematurely. Everybody has to die of these diseases, but then when they occur prematurely, between the age of 30 to 69 years, then it's a serious issue because it impairs the productivity of the country, because this is your productive population. And 3.8 million deaths occurred in 2005 and 2.1 million occurred due to 5 leading causes of cancer, which we talked about: cardiovascular diseases, COPD, asthma, etc. And at least quarter of them were avoidable. Okay, so these are avoidable deaths. And if we look at 2014, in the span of few years, these have jumped from 9.8 million to 38 million in 2014. And this, when you look at the projections, if we do not do anything, then they will jump to 52 million deaths by 2030. And productive age group population also, 3.8 millions were affected in 2005 and 16 millions in 2014, and by 2030 you will have 22 million deaths in the age of 30 to 69 years. Now you can imagine what tremendous loss to the family occurs if a man who's earning dies, and we are seeing it very often now. So this is a very, very sad state of affairs of non-communicable diseases and the toll that it is taking. So when you talk of risk factors for non-communicable diseases, hypertension or suboptimal blood pressures, that is, you may not be having blood pressures above 140/90, but even if you have blood pressures above 80/120, that is called suboptimal or pre-hypertension. So the burden of pre-hypertension is actually 75% in productive age group. But if we look at hypertension, we have 118 million hypertensives in 2000, and in 2025 they are going to jump to 214 millions, double in the span of 25 years. Similarly, diabetes also, again doubling, millions are affected, and tobacco usage, another very big menace that we have, that also the burden is going to increase by people who use tobacco, deaths that occur because of tobacco use. Now the question is, I have been saying that, but why NCD matters so much? Why are we talking so much, and there's a whole theme and seminar today dedicated to non-communicable diseases. Let's understand, why does it matter so much? Now, the NCDs actually affect all countries. No country is, free from non-communicable diseases death. But the issue is that now these non-communicable diseases are heavily concentrated in low and middle income countries. That is us in India. Now there are no more problems of the Western world. Cardiovascular diseases, diabetes were the diseases of affluence we were taught. But now, because of the fetal programming and other issues, these are no more problems of developed world only. They have become problems of developing world itself, and much larger problems here because of larger populations. So most of the deaths due to premature, and deaths of NCD are premature, that is in productive age group, causes loss of productivity obviously, and 43% deaths globally occur prematurely. And if we look at low and middle income countries, it jumps to 48%, almost 50% of the population which in productive age group dies of non-communicable diseases. And if we look at the 28% in the developed world, now we had said that developed countries had the problem of cardiovascular diseases, but they have made initiatives. There is a North Karelia project in Switzerland where they have looked at public health approaches to contain cardiovascular diseases and successfully shown reductions. So it has come to 28% in the developed countries and 48% in the low and middle income countries. We have almost the double burden of non-communicable deaths that occur in our productive age group population. The point I'm trying to make is productive age group population, which can really cause havoc to the economy of the nation. Then they also act as barriers to poverty alleviation and sustainable developmental goals, because your budgets are limited. You have huge burden of NCDs, you have burden of already nutritional deficiencies, and the sustainable goals that we are talking about are, the first one is about alleviation of poverty. So budgets are kind of get diluted when you have these burdens there. Individual and national costs of addressing NCDs act as important barriers to poverty reduction and sustainable development. And progress in attaining the NCD targets is therefore vital for attaining the sustainable developmental goals. Now I think I just want to add a line to tell everybody, audience, that last few years, from 1999 or 2000, we were following MDG goals, that is Millennium Developmental Goals, which were 8 of them. They were for reducing poverty, for reducing hunger. Then we were talking about education, women's education, empowerment, etc. So we had 8 goals to be achieved by 2015. And after 2015, now we have what we call as sustainable developmental goals. Now from 8 goals, we have moved to 18 goals, and these 18 goals with about 165 targets to be followed have to be achieved by 2025 or 2030. Here, non-communicable diseases does not come strongly as the goal. Okay, that is that part of it, but then we still have a long way to go in actually advocating for efforts of defining and deciding targets which are mandatory. We have voluntary targets, I will discuss that, but we don't have specific goals which where monitoring is being regularly done. Okay. Now we have been talking about productive population getting affected. So what is the global economic burden of non-communicable diseases? Now this is a report that I saw of World Economic Forum and Harvard School of Public Health, and it is sad to read this, that over the next 20 years NCDs will cost more than US $30 trillion, representing 48% of global GDP in 2010. So the cost is enormous of economic costs of non-communicable diseases, and this is going to push millions of people below the poverty line, because you do not have any system to manage these diseases. Prevention is easier, treatment of non-communicable diseases is very, very expensive. So having their own family members suffering from this pushes them again into the poverty web cycle, because you have to spend so much of money on treatments. So high cost of treatment and no health insurance available for majority of population in India also. This is the situation, pushing people into debts and poverty. Millions of deaths can be averted and economic loss reduced by billions of dollars if focus is put on prevention. So it's not that the whole game is lost, it's still not lost, because if we make efforts in preventing the occurrence of risk factors, or if we are not able to do that, manage risk factors well, then probably we could save millions and millions of dollars and lives of people who suffer from CKD or heart diseases, etc. So this is a huge role that nutritionists have to play for prevention of non-communicable diseases. where we have to talk about prevention of the major risk factors of non-communicable diseases. And population-based measures now, as I said, non-communicable diseases is no more a clinical problem, it's a public health problem. And therefore, when the numbers are such enormous, one-to-one treatment kind of thing is not going to help. What is going to help is public health measures. And public health measures like population-based measures of reducing tobacco usage, harmful alcohol use, as well as unhealthy diet and physical inactivity, they are estimated to cost $2 billion per year for all low and middle income countries, and which actually translates to only $0.40 per person cost. So cost of prevention is much better, cost effective than the cost of treatment. So prevention is the key for non-communicable diseases. Now let's look at, we have talked about global, let's look at regions now. Now according to WHO regional comparable estimates, the Western Pacific region has of course the highest still deaths that occur due to non-communicable diseases. But if you look at our region, Southeast Asia region, this is second. Okay, so that means Southeast Asia region also is now grappling with the problem, very high problem of deaths that are occurring due to non-communicable diseases. When we talk of deaths due to non-communicable diseases, cardiovascular diseases account for most of NCD deaths. 17.5 million people globally die due to cardiovascular diseases, followed by cancers, respiratory diseases and diabetes. And these four groups of diseases account for 82% of all non-communicable disease deaths. And that is the reason we have to concentrate on these 82% of deaths that are caused by, which have common risk factors. We'll show that. The risk factors are common for these diseases. So if we look at the non-communicable diseases, cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, COPD, cancers, the risk factors are high blood pressure, physical inactivity, obesity, raised cholesterol, decreased fruit and vegetable intake, raised blood glucose, alcohol and tobacco use. Now, if you look at it, most of them are amenable to dietary and lifestyle modifications. So this is where nutritionists and dietitians can play a very important role in preventing the occurrence or managing the risk factors. And these, as I said, four diseases have four modifiable shared risk factors. Now, as public health strategies, as a nutritionist, we talk of MUFA, PUFA, and lots of things. But when you are talking of public health measures, you cannot do that for so many things. You have to pick up what are called as best buy interventions. Most cost-effective interventions which will cost less, affect larger sections of the population and have a high impact. Now these cost-effective interventions are basically four modifiable risk factors that we have to control. They are tobacco use, unhealthy diets, physical inactivity and harmful use of alcohol. Now I'll just talk about unhealthy diets. Now, as nutritionists, we talk a lot about unhealthy diets, a lot of fat intake, protein intake, a lot of talks we do. But as far as the prevention strategies for unhealthy diets for non-communicable diseases goes, there are only three things that we have to do. One, promote the consumption of fruits and vegetables to optimal levels, which is 400 grams daily. Minimum. WHO recommendation is 400 grams of fruit and vegetable intake daily. Second is reduce salt in the diets. And third is reduce trans fat in our diets. all the bakery foods, all the trans fats that we consume, they are the major culprits of non-communicable diseases as far as the diet is concerned. So these are the three issues that we all have to address and do it synergistically. Let's not talk of many issues. Let's only focus on three issues and focus all our strategies and inertia to control and to see that healthy diets are available, affordable to the population. Now, what is the probability of dying out of one of the four main non-communicable diseases region-wise? If you look at CRO, the probability of dying is highest than all other regions of the world. Okay, the probability of dying from these four major non-communicable diseases is highest in our region, Southeast Asia region. Now, coming to India, we talked about world and region. Now let's talk about India, home. Let's look at Indian scenario. In 1990, 40% of the deaths were due to non-communicable diseases. Okay? And in 2020, they are going to jump to 67% of deaths. Okay? And every year, 5.8 million Indians die from heart and lung disease, stroke, cancer and diabetes. That is the four common non-communicable diseases that we are talking about. In other words, we can say 1 in 4 Indians risk dying from NCD before they reach the age of 70 years. Okay, so 25% are going to perish before they reach the age of 70 years. And this is really alarming because this affects the families. Now I just want to show this pie about India. Now in 2012, if you look at the causes of death, 24% were cardiovascular diseases. Deaths occurred due to cardiovascular diseases in India. And 34% were the diseases due to nutritional deficiencies, maternal and child health issues, immunization, communicable diseases, etc. And the rest of the pie is non-communicable diseases, okay, where the leading is cardiovascular diseases followed by cancers, 7%. And if you look at the projections for India, the cardiovascular diseases are going to rise from 24% to 36%, deaths due to cardiovascular diseases and cancers. These are our two very big major issues. And we also have a huge burden of COPD. And now if you look at NCD goals I will discuss, for India we have a specific goal to reduce indoor air pollution because that's very, very specific for our country. But this is a pie and the way it is changing. Still cardiovascular diseases are going to take the biggest toll, and cancers, and also the chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. So if you look at the world and see how these four non-communicable diseases are going to affect, India is in the red zone, more than 25%. Again, India also, we have huge amount of economic costs that we are already bearing. In 2005, it was estimated that India lost $9 billion in national income from premature deaths due to heart disease, stroke and diabetes. And by 2015, we have already lost to $37 billion. Okay, so it's huge economic loss due to non-communicable diseases, especially occurring due to premature deaths. And this is a calculation about years of life lost due to CVD in populations. Now you see, years of life lost is those who have heart attacks or those who have problems with heart disease and not able to work productively. They remain a burden to society, to medical care, and they are not able to contribute productively to the population. And this is called as what we call as potentially productive years of life lost. Now if we look at, this is of course old figure, we don't have any latest figure, 2004, India had the highest lost years of life lost due to CVD as compared to China, Russia, USA, South Africa and other countries. Look at the bar. And in 2000 it was 9.2 million and it is going to jump to 17.9 by 2030. This is the amount of productive life years lost in India that we are going to really face. Okay? So the question is why Indians are at higher risk of diabetes, cardiovascular diseases. One, as I already mentioned, is due to fetal programming, because in fetal stage, if there is undernutrition, then this fetal programming will make you susceptible to develop these conditions much earlier, because your body is not able to handle excess insulin, excess glucose, okay? Not able to produce that kind of insulin or remove cholesterol from your body, etc. So early influences, higher percent body fat, we are all prone to central obesity, which is a leading risk factor for cardiovascular diseases. So you have higher percent body fat, preferential deposition of fat in the upper body, insulin resistance, decreased HDL, that is your protective, high density lipoproteins, increased small dense LDL and genetic factors, and of course these are propelled by conventional risk factors of unhealthy diets, unhealthy lifestyles that we have, and urbanization, industrialization, globalization and aging population. Okay, all this is going to lead to a large number of Indians suffering from these non-communicable diseases. Looking at cancers. Now if you look at cancers, type of cancers in developed countries, 30% of it is due to unhealthy diet or nutrition. Okay, in India or in developing countries, it's 20%, but still high, and a large amount are due to infections, cervix cancer, hepatitis B, and all these liver cancers. So these are all due to infections, for which again cure or the treatment, prevention is available. Okay. Dr. Kachot also said that we often say that India is a diabetes capital of the world. India is capital of the world for all the wrong things. Okay, diabetes, cardiovascular, rape capital, whatever capital you may say. But India is not something, when we look at this data, is not something to be proud of, but a challenge that we all have to face. So 40 million diabetics were diagnosed in India in 2006. And they are going to jump to double, 80 million by 2030. Now you will not remember all these figures because there are a lot of figures, but then just the whole idea is to capture the essence as to what is the real major issue grappling our country. Unhealthy diet, as I said, I have not, because of lack of time, not looked at other tobacco, alcohol, other burden. I have just looked at one factor that is available for diet, that is fruit and vegetable intakes. And look at it. We are all in the red zone because the fruits and vegetable intake of the whole country is below 400 grams. That is recommended intakes of fruits and vegetables. So average is from 22 to 400 grams of fruits and vegetables in India. Okay. So this is something we have to push, we have to move ahead with that. And then sodium intake. As I said, the second important factor is sodium. Fortunately, Western world, because of a lot of packaged food consumption, has very high sodium levels. We are in the middle of it somewhere, but we are also catching up with the West, because we are also moving to packaged foods, processed foods, and our sodium intakes are going to rise further because inherently we take a lot of sodium in our diets. And then with all this packaging and all this extra food that you eat from outside, our sodium intakes become are going to be really problematic. So, now what to do? We know what is the burden. Now what is to be done? Now, the 66th World Health Assembly met in September 2011 to discuss and have a high-level meeting dedicated to prevention and control of non-communicable diseases. And this is the only second time when it meets every year. But only 2 times they have talked about health issues, and one was for HIV, and the HIV was in peak, HIV and AIDS prevention, and we have done well in that. And this is the second time when the Health Assembly met to discuss a health issue, which was for prevention and control of non-communicable diseases, and they have come out with a political declaration with 65 recommendations that we globally have to enforce in order to control non-communicable diseases. So these 65 recommendations are in these broad areas. One, we all have to recognize the challenge of epidemic proportions and its socio-economic and developmental impacts. We have to recognize that there is a need to respond to the challenge where a whole government and whole society effort is required. It's not only government is not going to help it, the whole society effort is required. We have to reduce risk factors and create health promoting environments. We have been discussing over our breakfast and all. Health promoting environments have a great potential to reduce non-communicable diseases. For example, school health programs, workplace health programs, because you have a large sections of population at one place. And school health really helps because these are the children who are developing habits. Early if we intervene, then they are developing habits. And in behavior change, it is all very well understood that it is easier to develop healthy habits than to change unhealthy habits. Okay, so therefore school is a very important environment to intervene, and we must have a school health promoting environment. Then another is of course workplace, because as I said, productive age group is most affected. So in workplaces, if you look at our BPO culture, we have fast food joints there. People have no time to go and have lunches or proper lunches. They pick up a snack and have a Coke or something and have on their tables. So that is the kind of culture that now we have developed or have kind of seen now. And therefore, we have to have health promoting environments. We have to strengthen national policies and health systems, foster international cooperation, including collaborative partnerships, health, nutrition, agriculture, school, everybody, education, everybody has to get together and do synergistic efforts to control non-communicable diseases. We have to promote research and development for innovation, for evidence-based interventions, and regulate monitoring, evaluation, and feedback. These are the recommendations that World Health Assembly has set forth in order to work to reduce non-communicable diseases.
Dr. Meenakshi would like you to conclude.
Okay. Now, there is a global action plan for the prevention and control of non-communicable diseases in 2012. After the World Health Assembly, 2012 they came out with targets, which are 9 for controlling non-communicable diseases by 2025. Now these are 9 voluntary targets. These are not mandatory targets. There are 9 voluntary targets, which is about management, treatment, etc. But 4 which I want to point out is: 1, halt the rise in diabetes and obesity, where our role plays a very important role is there. Then 30% reduction in salt intake, which is again important role that nutritionists can play. And then is 25% reduction in prevalence of high blood pressure, and again the last one is 25% reduction in premature death. So the costs of inaction are tremendous as compared to the costs of action. And these nine voluntary targets is what the world as well as India has to pursue in order to reduce the burden of non-communicable disease. India has actually responded to this, and we have a national program for prevention and control of diabetes, cardiovascular diseases and stroke. And this is an integrated action plan for the prevention, which has three major riders or three main components: health promotion for general population, disease prevention for high-risk population, and assessment of prevalence of risk factors. So this is what is our national program, not yet scaled up to all the states of the country. India, fortunately, was also the first to adapt the global monitoring framework for non-communicable diseases. So we've started doing something, but we have a long way to go. So we need to develop and implement national multi-sectoral action plans to attain national targets. So multi-sectoral, and the key is partnerships. We have to work together to have multi-sectoral collaboration, convergence, in order to create enabling environments and to reduce non-communicable diseases. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Meenakshi, for a very excellent lecture.
And delegates, and ever enthusiastic, enterprising students. To begin with, I thank the chairperson for very exaggerated this introduction. I feel if I could live up to this even a wee bit. We had a very, very fine presentation before this, and you won't mind if certain things may be a repetition, and you also won't mind a little rustic presentation in this case. I feel privileged to be here, and the area we will have deliberations here is very, very important, and most important thing is to cause the awareness, and especially in the minds and hearts of budding nutritionists, that is the students. And as somebody has said that doing a thing oneself, it is good, but making somebody else, a group, or even at a larger level to do good things, that is the real thing. So if we can have awareness, if we can build conviction, and on top of it, if we can build this courage of conviction, then probably the scenario can be altered. So the ominous portents the earlier speaker also talked about. So the double burden. Although Dr. Katur said that on the front of communicable diseases we have done a lot, no doubt, but still that ugly head which they have raised very early, that is there for us to face. So MDR TB we encounter, then MDR typhoid and certain venereal diseases. So that burden is still there, and then we are in for another onslaught, and that is of non-communicable diseases. And WHO, although there are several, as it has been said, but these 4 diseases, as some 80% of the people, they suffer from these 4 diseases, that is cardiovascular and this chronic respiratory, diabetes mellitus, and cancers. So they have come of age. It happened that we remain busy with all other things, including this fight with communicable diseases, and they raised their head in between, and we didn't know that it has really they are staring in our eye. And the implications, as we have had previously, they are huge in terms of economy, in terms of development. Then these are risk factors. Again, it has been talked about. We have pollution, we have this tobacco, alcohol abuse, then we have the lifestyle. Then again, India is very particular in having this affluence and scarcity playing hide and seek in the same person's life. It is no less contributor. And then it is a happy thing that life span has increased, but this graying thing, it is also taking its toll, and we are in for morbidity. So that is another thing. And this change, population and urbanization, and genetics, that peculiar factor that we have in our genes, making us very, very vulnerable. So for the sake of students, if I sum up the changes after this independence, the global thing that has happened, that is information revolution. Then in our country, we have had this green revolution on food front. Then we had white revolution. We had this yellow revolution, that is poultry, increase very high production of poultry foods. And then blue revolution also of seafoods, and rainbow revolutions regarding this fruits and vegetables. And then another revolution in the negative sense, it's a kind of explosion, that is population explosion. And this population explosion again has taken a great toll in terms of hunger and in terms of blurring our vision of a healthy India post-independence. So this threat again has been elaborated very nicely by the earlier speaker. It is global and it is national also. And the quantum we can judge that the total number of deaths occurring from NCDs, they are far exceeding than deaths from all other things. And most important thing which can be taken as a travesty is that earlier we used to think these are the diseases of the affluent. These are going to be there in affluent countries. Even if they are there in our country, then only those people, the haves. But now we find the diseases, they are creeping into poor and rural populations. So we are fraught with very disastrous consequences. Again, this fact really doesn't need emphasis. It has been emphasized by Dr. Katose, then Madam Meenakshi. So we are the world capital, not only for diabetes, but also for hypertension. And we can find that the projections, you have seen very nicely earlier also, that for 2025 and 30, so we have 10 crores and 21 crores suffering from this diabetes and this hypertension. And then the other projection is again fraught with more difficulty. So 60% is this death burden. This toll will be taken by NCDs, and 54% will be contributed by this cardiovascular diseases. So scenario is very grim, and this point should go home, especially to the students. So 5-8 million Indians die from NCDs every year, and its mortality and morbidity takes a toll of productivity also. So this prevention is one thing, and reducing morbidity very important, mortality very, very important. And if we act early, then probably we can manage it well. So that is very, very important in terms of reduced cost and less loss of productivity. So for students, if we manage these cancers at the early stages, then the cost is less, the effort is less. But advanced stage is very, very difficult to manage. And same thing happens with diabetes. If it goes up to this kidney failure stage, then it becomes very, very difficult. All this medication and all this dialysis and all this. Then once again I am dwelling on the same thing. This scarcity and abundance cycles in terms of nutrition, they play no less role. Prenatal, postnatal, malnutrition, and then affluence and intake of that is overnutrition in terms of energy and fat. This causes the havoc, combined to a reduced level of physical activity. So these things are happening, and we are in for a change. The whole world is in for a change, and India is no exception. But then lopsidedness is there, as Dr. Katose understood in the morning, and this economic development and urbanization, again fueling the epidemic of overweight, obesity, and then other consequences. So we talk of junk foods time and again, but the biggest junk that is there is inactivity. So we have to shun this junk. Put it in another way, the fetal origin of fetal diseases, I would like to re-emphasize so that students they take note. This human fetus has a very long and vivid this memory. They say it is elephantine memory. Elephants, they have very long memories. Students, they have read the story of the tailor and elephant. How tailor did a prick and then elephant after quite some time took the revenge. So same thing is there for human fetus. So any nutritional inserts that are there for the fetus, they get manifested later in life. This is Barker's hypothesis, and Barker has worked longitudinally for several years to come to this conclusion. Then there is this thrifty phenotype hypothesis. This is again related to deprivation and adaptation and organ development through this adaptation, metabolic pathways also. But there are survival benefits, no doubt. But we are in for a greater risk of NCDs in later life. Then there is this concept of thin fat Indian. Dr. Yagnik of Pune, he has worked a lot on this. So it again happens that whenever this malnutrition is there, one loses one's weight in terms of body cell mass, that is the active metabolizing tissue. But when it is affluence and when there is higher intake, the gain in weight, that is not in terms of, mostly in terms of the active metabolizing tissue, that is body cell mass, it is more often than not in the form of fat. And most of the time the deposition, that is also abdominal, and that does the havoc. So as a result, it happens that cost of all metabolic activities, including this BMR, that gets lowered, and the excess energy that gets deposited further and further in the form of fat. And even if the weight is normal, but the percentage of fat, that is much more. That is why this WHO has woken up to this reality of Asians and has devised this two types of norms. This is for Westerners. Overweight, this limit starts at 25 for this BMI, and then further obesity class 1, 2, 3. But in Asians and Indians, so they have reduced this thing to 23, the limit for overweight, because of this thin fat Indian kind of thing, revolution. Then there is another concept, metabolically obese but normal weight. So this is again the same thing put in another way. So the person is normal weight individual, but displays impaired insulin sensitivity, higher risk of developing this diabetes, there's coronary heart disease, and all kinds of morbidity and mortality. And now they have also devised an index. This is TYG. What they do is fasting blood glucose, milligram per 100 ml, fasting triglycerides, again milligram per 100 ml, divided by 2, multiplied by 1000. And the upper limit on an average is 8.8, little different for men and women. So these are very easy tests, and one can calculate this index, and one can find one's vulnerability, and one can also make people aware about if there is any component of this MONW in some person's being or not. So this mother-child malnutrition, they have great ramifications, and in India we have plenty of this low birth weight children, and many more of them, they are exposed to this affluent nutrition afterwards. And this also happens to the people who are born here, and then they shift to greener pastures, they go abroad, and then they suffer this consequence. So when we have to assess the risk for a given BMI value, Then we have to take care of this waist circumference. We have to see the comorbidities, diabetes mellitus, hypertension, dyslipidemia, and if it is there, then probably that is a high time to act, and we have to go for some adjunctive therapy also. Then there is that evolutionary concept, why we have become thrifty Indians. Then somebody has come up with this hypothesis that some millions of years ago, when things, they were very, very meager, the food substances. So this adaptation happened at that time to thrifty metabolism at genetic level, and that is continuing. This kind of hypothesis has been put forth. So there was a time when the environment in terms of nutrients was lean and mean, and then for survival this has happened, and now the tables are turned, but the genes, they are more or less the same and are responsible for this metabolic syndrome. Then there are body types also. We all know, the students, they also study. We have the ectomorphs and mesomorphs and endomorphs. And in India we have a huge population of short stature people, and they are very, very much prone to this overweight, adiposity, and deposition of fat in the abdominal region. Then two types of adipose tissue, again for the students. So the difficult one is the other one, that is abdominal, intra-abdominal adipose tissue, and we find that mostly the fat deposition, it happens here in this region. So even if BMI doesn't speak much, but this deposition and thin fat Indian concept, this should keep us alarmed. And one more thing, that earlier we used to think that these adipose tissue cells, they are just the storage things for fat. But now we find that they are no less than live wires. So many kinds of substances, of hormonal consequence, of messenger consequence, they are secreting, and accordingly we are reaping the dividends, good or bad. Then there is stress factor, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So that also leads to this hormonal upheavals, and we find that Dr. Katoch talked about this psychosocial environment. So we are becoming increasingly victim to this thing, and we are finding that every day people, they are coming face to face with such situations and causing some kind of manifestation of these diseases because of these factors. Metabolic syndrome, we all know, characterized by these cluster of conditions, hypertension, then sugar level, then fat deposition, then hypercholesterolemia. Then these are the criteria: the waist circumference, then triglyceride, then HDL cholesterol level. Dr. Meenakshi also dwelt upon this very nicely. Then blood pressure and this fasting glucose. And all these we can measure very easily. We can make people to do this. We can cause awareness, and then they should take these as alarm signals. Now our country has woken up to this reality of this non-communicable diseases, and this drafting of this new health policy 2015, they have given due this representation to this Ayurveda, and Ayurveda again deals with a lifetime approach, right from this gestational management, childhood, even preconception, childhood care, and then adolescent awareness programs. Then they have also mooted this concept of FHFP, food selection and healthy feeding practices, over a period of lifetime. Then the greater emphasis they put on adolescents. Even earlier we should act, because once behaviors they are established, then they last for the whole life. So an integrated approach is being planned, and this Ayush has been mainstream. All these departments, Ayurveda and Siddhi and Unani and this homeopathy. So that way the government feels that a cost-effective treatment will come up, and people have treatment options because